Axle Dubs. I'm Mark, and I'm here today with Martin Milliken, the guy that built this 1959 Ragtop. And I found Martin's name in some of the paperwork, and I had contacted him years ago, and it took him a while to get back to me. He basically said, "I'm too busy." Remember that?
Yeah. I remember when you called. I remember the night you called me.
Yeah. And it's like, oh, I bought your bug. But yeah, I wanted to get together with Martin and kind of, have a conversation about this car and, see what he knows, because I don't know what all's been done to the car. So Martin, I guess the first thing is, where'd you get this car?
Well, like with many of the Volkswagens that I've got over the years, the air-cooled VWs that I've gotten, I just, found it by keeping my eyes open and my VW radar on, and I saw it actually parked in a parking lot of an apartment complex off Enfield Road. It was kind of off the road, and it definitely took some head turning and searching to spot it, but when I did spot it, I remember my wife Rika and I we were on the way back home from somewhere, I don't know, some evening on a weekend, and we saw the car, and we drove in to the parking lot there, and wow, it was a Ragtop, and the tires were all flat, and it was sitting there, just parked. But interestingly enough, the parking space had a number painted on the
so it was
asphalt
like a
there.
reserved parking spot.
Yeah, it was like a reserved parking spot for the unit.
Okay, right.
And I kind of guessed that, and we left that night, and I just sort of thought, like I had done with many VWs I've gotten over the years, just sort of kept my eye on it and drove by several times until I finally got the initiative up to go knock on the door, and I figured out, there's the apartment numbers, and I guess this is where it is, and I knocked, and it took about several visits before I ever got anybody to answer the door, and I finally did. And it was the brother of the owner that lived in the apartment. And he said that he thought his brother might be interested in selling it. It didn't run, but it was just sitting there with flat tires, and it looked rough, but there wasn't a lot of rust. And so it was, it looked encouraging. And the interesting thing is that the car was intact. I mean, it basically it was completely original.
So what year was that? You recall?
That was probably in 1998. I would say 98, 99.
Right. So there was no Samba that I recall back in 1998, seeing as how Al Gore invented the internet in 95.
Yeah.
Or somewhere around there.
Yeah,
94
well,
maybe. So it wasn't easy to go search things to find information about a 59. You had to know friends back in the day.
Well, you had to kind of search a little harder. There's definitely less stuff available on the internet, but there's a huge VW community all over the U.S. and I don't know when the Samba started, but I do know that the Samba was a resource for me, and probably that was when it was sometime around then that the Samba might have started, because I used the Samba to get parts for this restoration. For sure.
Cool. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a big resource that we all use, at least for Samba and Shop Talk forums. Those are great resources to find information about stuff on how to fix things, at least for me. And Samba has a huge for sale classified,
section.
right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. But so what was so you bought the car? How long did it take you to get into it and start working on it?
Well, so after I negotiated a sale, purchase of the car, I want to say that I know I paid less than $1,000 for it.
Really?
Yes, I know I paid less than $1,000.
Less than $1,000 for a Ragtop.
It wasn't running. That was back in the day when I bought a 64 21 window in Austin same way, knocked on somebody's door, paid $4,500 for it.
Wow.
And it didn't have any rust. That was a different time.
Yeah,
those
it
times
was.
are long past. But
I bought a 15 window deluxe bus.
wow.
66. I paid an extra $100 for the middle seat. I paid $1,500.
Oh my
for it.
gosh.
I almost drove it home. I had to park because it was about to blow up. But yeah, That's,
Yeah, well,
yeah.
15
Back in the day.
windows, a rare bus too now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a different time, and you know, I got a good deal on it. It didn't run. I towed it over to the house from the apartment with one of those Beetle tow bars, and we actually lived on Enfield Road at the time, and I just put it in the driveway and pushed it into the garage, and sort of just started thinking about how I was going to do it and what I was going to do. And I'd had several other VWs before that, but I'd never really done a restoration like this. But I'd always dreamed of having a new vintage Beetle, and
Wow.
so I did a little research on it, and learned about pan-off restoration. I tinkered with cars all my life, but this was the first big deal that I went into, and started it there at my house, and the project went through a move to another house. So we got the body off of it, and I took that to a body shop down in South Austin on I want to say it was South First. It's no longer there anymore. I left the body there, and then I started to do the pan. When I bought the car, the title was in the name of the prior owner, and that was a real interesting story of how I ultimately got the title in my name, because I went totally above board, and I tracked down the prior owner who was living in Oklahoma, and wrote him a letter, sent it actually in the mail, and one day he literally showed up at my house, and I got the 130U signed, and got the title in my name. And he told me a little bit about it. The car, like I said, the car was original. It had the 1240 horse engine in it, and it was all the sheet metal was there. It had the stale air cooling heater boxes and everything. And silly me, I was kind of a newbie at the time, and I didn't really appreciate the value of that engine that was in there. I don't know really what was wrong with it, but when I pulled that engine, I ended up just giving it away.
So you never got that engine running?
Never even tried.
Did it turn over?
No,
Okay.
never even tried.
Okay.
Pulled the engine out, and it was in my driveway, and I don't remember exactly how I did. It was probably on Craigslist. Put out an ad, and somebody it went fast.
Yeah.
So I lamented that decision a few times over the years, but what the heck? Somebody got it, and hopefully they rebuilt it.
Right. So you put a larger motor in there, right?
Yeah, well, my goal was to make it a driver. I wanted to make a bit of a sleeper kind of resto that looked completely stock. And my goal in terms of the aesthetics of the car was to make it totally stock. And so everything I did with the painting, it was painted the original color, which I want to say was coral, but
Garnet red.
Garnet red is
Yeah.
so anyway, I got it painted the original color, and everything was done. The
So
headliner,
they painted inside and out, right?
inside and out was painted, and all the upholstery is West Coast classics, which is they're probably the best VW upholstery outfit in the country. They do custom, handmade original upholstery.
Yeah, I've heard comments from people about the quality of the door panels.
Yeah, you can look at them and still they've held up as well as anything in there. And then the headliner was the original mohair headliner. I had that put in by somebody called South Congress.
Yeah, I heard a story that you had the headliner removed and cleaned and put back in. Is that correct?
I don't think so. I think that was That was a replacement headliner, but it was
But it's
mohair. It was
yeah.
the original, style. So
Right.
trying to stick with the original. I took the whole car apart, took all the windows out, all the seals. We pulled the body off. I loaded the body onto a trailer with, I want to say, with sawhorses, and just strapped it down, and we towed it to the body guy, and he put it on a frame there, and kept it. That was probably the most painful part of the process, was the body work,
Right.
and the paint. But he kept it for as long as it took me to do all the other work, which I did in my garage. And, I pretty much replaced every single piece and bolt with either new parts that I procured from different places. Some of them were off Tamba, some of them were from various retailers.
Now, I've heard stories or horror stories about taking an old car to get paint and it taking forever, or they reject the parts that you bring them because they're not the quality that they want to do, because they know you're going to come back and complain or whatever. Did you have that kind of issue? I mean, how long did it take to get paint?
I really didn't have any issue with any of the parts on the car. All the fenders, I want to say, and I'm fairly certain, the doors, the fenders are all the original parts. The only thing that's not original was the deck lid.
Interesting.
And I found a new deck lid. Can't remember exactly what was up with that, but got a new deck lid. All the other body parts, there was very little rust. And you can tell, looking at the car now, there's really, there's not a lot of rust in all the classic places. I mean, I don't know, there's a little bit.
The only rust spot that I know of is where, and you can tell me if you did this or this was already done, where the kickstand was removed on the hood and they welded in the bracket spring.
Yeah, well, I don't remember that exactly, to be honest with you, but those hinges and the deck, the hoods were notorious for bending,
right?
Because of the way that the hinge on them just isn't very supportive, and the weight of the thing tends to
Yeah, it's all
bend.
on one side. And people forget about it and try to close it and buckle it.
And it buckles it. Yeah,
right. And this is the old. It's an old hood because it has the different emblem and the mounting holes for the different emblem.
Yeah.
Which I think they call it a 4-tab or a 3-tab. I don't know.
Well, I don't remember that specifically, but I do know that everything that I tried to source for the car, if it was a replacement, I tried to make it correct for the year.
Right.
So
I've noticed that as the minor amount of work. I really had to do nothing to the car. I've owned the car since 2006. Bought it in January 2006, and I really had to do nothing to the car. Replace the alternator.
Well, that makes me feel good that I did a reasonable job for the first.
Yeah, right.
Pan off restoration of everything.
And I replaced the ignition switch, which was kind of hard to find. Screw-on terminals. The radio doesn't work, which I don't know if you had it working.
I did try to keep that correct, and I can't remember what the deal on that was. If it was one that I just put in there that didn't work to just have the appearance effect, but it's like I'm not sure the tunes would be very worth.
Oh no,
anyway,
it's not.
It's fun when they do work.
Just like in my '64 bug, I can turn the knob and the little dim light comes on, so I can see paradise by the dashboard light, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But that's another thing. Driving an old Volkswagen is kind of like paradise. At least it's a euphoric feeling to be driving an old car and knowing that this car is a little bit quick, but knowing that you can't go fast.
Yeah.
And if you're sitting, hopefully not in traffic because you got to shift gears and you don't have any airflow. But yeah, if you're just cruising down the road, going slow, and people are looking at you, it's a great thing driving an old beat up, and it's a happiness that I can't get in any other vehicle.
Yeah.
I can get in a bug and a bus, and anybody that's driven, well, I say anybody, most people that have driven old bugs know this feeling that I'm talking about. It's awesome. But let's see what other questions.
I do know that I put those pop-out windows in. Those were not original.
Now,
so I had to source those somewhere. I don't remember where I got those, but it was probably Craigslist or whatever. But those I put in. and it looks like they're,
Yeah, they
they
don't
work?
they don't stay open.
Yeah.
They don't stay open well.
I put them in my 61, and it's very hard to place those hinges quick.
Yeah, I don't know if that's the deal, or if I need new rubber grommets between the two pieces of metal.
It could be. I mean, just looking at them, they look like, I don't know. They're it has to do with exactly the way they're oriented, and then it probably has something to do with the grommets on the washer as well.
But let's see where we're at here. So when you got the car, what was the interior like? Was there?
The interior was just a rat's nest.
Right.
I mean,
so
it was
they had
trashed.
all the seats.
Had all the seats. They were all there, but it was just completely, done. So that all got stripped out, and I took all the seats out and, stripped all that stuff out. And the pans were in decent shape, but I did take the whole car apart, and I had another friend who was a restoration enthusiast. He was a little higher end guy into Jaguars, and he had a body guy that he recommended to me, and he took on the pan, and I brought the pan to him and just said, can you do this?
Right.
And he actually took it upon himself to buy one of the halves. And
Wow.
so one of the pan halves is not original, but the other one is. And he just put it in, and he coated it with, I wonder, is there any rust on the pan under the battery or anything?
No, there's not. But it's interesting that you mentioned that one of the pans is not original because, and I've seen this true with other repop or remanufactured, not remanufactured, but aftermarket pans, the seat rails. So
Exactly. Yeah.
And the passenger seat in this doesn't pop. They'll like pop off the rails where, I've got to figure out. I want to expand the two rails and the slides on it's in between the two to press the seat, which I don't have that problem on the driver's seat. So and it makes sense that it's a passenger side, and it makes sense that it's real batteries. Yeah. So.
But he did a great job on it, redid it, and then I built it all back together. And I mean, it was like it had. I want to say that the beam was new. I ordered a new beam, so that wasn't original. The transmission. Pretty sure I did a transmission because I put the 1776.
Yeah, this is not the crash box, which that would have had.
It was an upgraded tranny.
Yeah.
And I bought that from I don't remember who I bought it from, but it was a SoCal tranny outfit. It was well recognized. The engine, interestingly enough, I did get on the Samba.
Interesting.
And I remember the guy I bought it from, his name was Dan Moy, M-O-Y.
Yeah.
And he rebuilt it with all Gene Berg parts.
Right.
It was 100% Gene Berg, 1776.
Right.
And I bought it. It was a long block. I found a guy on Craigslist to move the engine from. It was in the Northeast somewhere.
Wow.
He just
Sweet.
loaded it up and brought it to my house, and it all worked out. And it was one of those things I was worried about it until it showed up at my house. But
Right.
I was really worried about it until I started.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another friend's going through that with he got a motor that they started it up like this motor is not what you paid for.
Yeah.
Or someone bought a high-end motor and they get it there and it's not. It's not. Yeah, interesting. So during the restoration process, what did you struggle with the most? Whether you either sourcing it out or even doing it yourself.
Well,
what was the toughest part?
I mean, the part I think that was the most difficult was getting the body guy, the paint body guy, to really complete. He basically took the body, put it in the shop, tucked it in my cushion.
Like I said,
He had it for I just demanded it, pressure. He ended up knocking it out. I would imagine it was less than a month. Probably a matter of weeks. And,
Right.
It looked really good when he did it. I kind of wonder if he didn't take more shortcuts than he should have.
Well, one thing I noted when I got the car, like I said, I've owned the car since 2006. The taillights were not clear cut. You know, you wouldn't know that because they're shiny, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and I guess it's easy to miss. You know, if he's doing the right kind of resto, he's taking the fenders off the painted car, which obviously was done.
They were all off, yeah.
And then taking the taillights off the fenders. I did notice that you mentioned that the original fenders, they have the metal tube that goes from the headlight to the body.
Cool.
Which that's
Pretty
something that's really old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
You know, you don't find that. In fact, I've never owned a bug. Well, this is the oldest bug that I've owned, and none of the other ones that I've owned have had that on there.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, and I didn't even know it was a thing.
remember that.
Yeah.
But
So
interesting.
But now, did you upgrade it to 12 volt, or was it already?
I upgraded it to 12 volt. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
It was all like 6 volt, 40 horse.
Yeah.
1200 when I got it, and of course every mechanical part was taken off of it, and so when I put it back together, I just put it back together with, as modern and upgraded as I could. So keeping it looking solid.
So I'm sure that you, or maybe there was one owner between us. The horn button doesn't work. Did you ever get it to work? Or?
I was looking at that and wondering, horn buttons in these cars are very different.
Oh, I know.
And it's got all the stuff on there. I was noticing it when I was looking in there, the little grounds and
the ground post on the-
connections. I
on the-
worked hard to find all those correct pieces, but to be honest with you, I can't remember if it ever worked. I
Right.
know that tying it all together at the end, the very final, I mean, I got it to start, I got it together, I got some of the electrical working, it was drivable, but I have to admit, took it to Kenny Hill.
Okay.
And Norm worked for Kenny Hill at the time, and Norm and Kenny pretty much put it all together for the, just got the blinkers working right, and just dialed in the dual, because it had the dual carbs, and that wasn't my forte at the time.
Right.
And, never had really gotten that good with dual carbs, but they dialed it all in, and then it was driver, and I was driving it pretty much on a regular basis for, I want to say, a couple of years.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, why did you decide to sell it?
That's a good question. I just sort of like, I'm almost embarrassed to say how many VWs I've had over the years. And at the time, space was a limitation at the house, and I had the 21 window, and I also had just a really pristine 62 double cab that bought that out of New Braunfels from a used car dealer, and it wasn't painted a VW white, but it was painted this sort of bright white, and it was a rust-free driver. And, I just had too many cars. I almost at the time I was really into it and just trying to buy and trade and sell and whatever. There's a 23 window that I almost bought. It was for sale in Westlake. Just, I don't know. I was just sort of wheeling and dealing. Space was a limitation. We were about to renovate our house, and we had a big renovation coming, and so I don't know. I decided to sell it.
Wow. So, yeah, if we only knew now what we knew then, right?
Oh, isn't
Getting
that the
a
truth?
23 window, I'd jump on that for a couple $1,000s maybe. And right now it's worth $100,000.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And that thing was pristine.
Wow.
It had been restored in Arizona, and it was perfect. And he wanted 15 grand. And I waited a weekend, and it sold to somebody in Houston. I wonder where that thing is. But anyway, that's how it is. If you're into vintage cars, they come and go.
Right.
There's always one that got away.
So I guess is there any seller's remorse? I mean, I know every time I've sold a Volkswagen.
It was like when you called me. It was really exciting to hear the enthusiasm in your voice when you got the car, and I had sort of moved on at that point, but then it's sort of back and forth. Now I'm kind of full steam ahead back into air cooled, and there's a little remorse, a little regret, but it's like I'm glad that you guys got the car, and it's clear that you guys really love the car and have had it for a long time, owned it longer than I ever did.
Right.
And it's still running, and you know, it just makes me happy to know that, you know, that's kind of what the VW thing's all about, is just, you know, getting people into it, and camaraderie. And,
yeah,
you know.
and the fact that, you know, they're easy to work on. Well, once you know how to work on them, they're easy to work on. You can fix most things if you're familiar with it.
Yeah.
And this car, you know, it's not my daily driver. It has been my daily driver at times when, you know, another car's down.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, very dependable. I have one issue that is common, that the fuel retreats to the tank, and I can't get it started if I haven't started it recently, which I guess is probably a fuel pump issue. But yeah, that's like the only, that's why I keep a bottle of starting spray in it, and you know, get one side to fire, because, you know, dual carbs, spray it on one side that's easy to get to, get it to fire, and gets it pumping enough gas to get it going. Yeah, couple attempts to start, and it, you know, it always starts right up.
Well, that's good to know. It makes me happy. But, you know, I'm happy you guys have it. You know, I do. The fact that now I own a 1961 Ragtop that has been restored, not quite as thoroughly as this one was, but you know, just I think it does indicate a little bit that I was sorry to let the Ragtop go.
Yeah, but
you know, there's just something about a Ragtop that's just sweet.
Yeah, it's an interesting point you make, because this is the first Ragtop or convertible that I've ever owned. I considered back in the day doing a Hollywood top where you cut right there, and there was a guy in high school that had one, you know, and that was back when you could buy bugs for. I bought a bug for $75.
Yeah.
Yeah, I bought a bug for $75 and a bug for $50.
Wow.
Yeah, the 51 didn't run. We dragged it and tried to kickstart it, and we went and looked at it, and the engine was kind of orange because of the heat.
So it was a bit done.
Yeah, it was cooked. So we just took it to the junkyard.
That's hilarious.
But, yeah, interesting stories. That, you know,
well, I do have a little story about that, because I bought a donor car from Kenny Hill. It was an early '60s car, and I literally bought that car for like doorknobs and handles and buttons on the dash, and it was a total, you know, wreck of a car. Wow. And I ended up just like leaving that on the side of the road somewhere.
You just left it, right?
Yeah, I just left it.
Did you have a title for it?
I don't think so. Yeah. No, I think Kenny Hill sold it to me, and he didn't have a title, and I just bought it for the parts. And then I just kind of left it.
Yeah, my first VW I actually threw away. Same thing. There was a fenced yard when I lived in El Paso, and there were a handful of, literally maybe 5 Volkswagens in this yard that were in various states of disarray. And it looks like someone was trying to start a VW junkyard, so I just donated to it.
There you go.
I'd taken the motor out, we dragged it out there. I had to have the training in it, so that I didn't know, I was 16, right? Or 17. I didn't know that you could take the axles out, so I left the training in it. So it gave someone a free training that was good condition.
You know,
and I left one of those empty steering wheels in there.
Oh man!
And I didn't realize that, you know, back then they weren't worth what they are now. You have the $400 steering wheel. Left it there.
It's crazy.
Yeah, the wood one with the aluminum, brushed aluminum center or whatever it is.
Yeah.
The door pocket. Yeah, and if you can get like a close up of the texture in this, like right along the bead and stuff, the fact that no one gets that right.
Yeah, those guys are good.
You said West Coast Classics?
West Coast Classic. Look them up. They're still in business. They're kind of a little bit, you know, hard to deal with, because, you know, they know their products.
Yeah, they know that. All right, Martin. So if there's anything you see on the car that brings back any strange memories or whatever.
Well, what I remember most about it is just that it appears to be, you know, very similar to everything that I did when I did it. I mean, the parts are all there. I mean, these lenses were all correct, and turn signals. I do remember sourcing the radio, but whether or not it ever worked, I can't remember that. I did put a whole new wiring harness in it.
Right.
Looks, you know, everything looks like it's there. And like you pointed out, those tubes for the wiring to the headlamps are still in there, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah, those like I said, I've never seen that before. And I guess it's, you know, an old bud thing. But
I want to say that those Running boards are the original running boards, but I don't know. Is that right? Could that be correct? I can't say. Probably.
Yeah, I was wondering because they're very solid. They're not the weak ones like the repops that I know you can get decent repops, but
I mean, all this trim was the original trim. I do remember that. This is a new Ragtop.
where'd you get the Ragtop done at?
Probably from Wolfsburg West.
Okay, but did you install it yourself?
Yep.
Okay, I heard
I didn't do the headliner, but I did the Ragtop. Yeah, I installed that.
Yeah.
I did all the rubber, all the windows, put all that in.
Yeah.
I did the upholstery.
Really?
Yeah, I put the upholstery in, but I did not do the Ragtop. I mean the headliner. The
Right.
headliner. I did the Ragtop. I didn't do the headliner.
Did you add this, or was this already on the deck lid?
It was. I think it was the correct one. I don't remember. I think it was the original one.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't ever remember seeing that. So yeah, it's 1776.
All those parts were, you know, I remember putting this breather thing on there, the dual carbs, the stickers, I sourced those stickers.
Right. Yeah. So, where did you find that coil holder? I've never seen that.
You know,
Bolts to the
I don't know.
case.
I don't know where I found it.
Because I always thought that was a cool location for it.
Yeah.
It
I
had
do not recall where I found that.
one other thing I did have to do to it. The electronic points died in it, so I had a
okay.
distributor that I just threw in there to get where we were going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it had
And,
a Pertronics in
Yes,
it.
right. And I've replaced the exhaust at least once.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah,
I had
I
a
did.
similar exhaust on it.
Right. Yeah.
That was the only thing you could really tell by looking at the car from the outside that it wasn't stock, was the exhaust.
Right. Right. Yeah, and when I got the car, you know, these were bolted up, but it seems like it's too tight for this to close.
Oh, that could be. That makes sense, yeah.
Well, no, it wasn't too tight. Now I'm wondering what, you know, because it won't move it that much. But
Well, that's real common that impinges on the movement.
oh,
of
you know what?
the deck
I've
lid.
changed this bumper also.
Did you change the bumper? Yeah.
Yeah, because this had a the bumper that was on it started rusting a little bit. It looks like maybe you had it straightened or someone had it straightened.
I think I had them like chromed and straightened by somebody down at South Austin.
Yeah.
I seem to remember that.
But yeah, so it's been a fun car to drive. You know, I love driving it. The Ragtop, you know, really gets attention, and unfortunately, I'm losing my hair now, so driving a Ragtop's a little less
Fun.
well, not fun, but
Just
sensible.
Yeah. Well, the thing I always liked about the Ragtops, it's to me the experience of driving in a car with that big of a sunroof is that it's a little bit in between the smaller size sunroof and a convertible in terms of the turbulence and the noise.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you make that observation? It doesn't seem as loud and windy.
Interesting, because I did have a sunroof Bug, 64.
Yeah, that was the
First
year
year.
of the sunroof. Yeah, the smaller sunroof.
the tin sunroof.
The metal
Yeah.
one, yeah.
And I don't recall that I heard the wind noise, but the few times I've ridden in a convertible, which has never been mine, so I wasn't driving, the wind noise was just terrible.
Yeah.
That, you know, I mean, at least this car I can drive without a hat on and kind of fix up my hair when I get there.
Yeah.
But a convertible, you got to have a hat on. Or
Yeah, I know.
You look like a mess when you get there. Or, you know, you see the convertible people driving with their windows up, which you know, so they don't get all their hair doesn't get all screwed up.
The turbulence.
Yeah, and I guess and just having a conversation with you know, in a Ragtop, it's not hard to have a conversation. I mean, Volkswagens are kind of loud anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, in a convertible, you don't really get to have a conversation.
Yeah, it's just too much road noise.
Right. So,
Right.
yeah.
Do you want to start up the motor and hear it?
Sure. Let me start it up.
Crank it up.
Yeah, I don't know if I even. Yeah.